From the Ear to There Travel Studio, this is the Ear to There Disney Podcast.
The Ear to There Podcast, it's time to start the show. Be sure to hold on tight, here we go. Exploring all the different Disney destinations. Ear to There, it's time to start the fun.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Ear to There Disney Podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. This is your captain speaking. My name is Phil Gramlich, and I am the owner and the founder of Ear to There Travel, which is, of course, a Disney specialized travel agency. It's my job, along with all of the other vacationers on the Ear to There Travel team, to take away all that stress, all that anxiety, and all that time that it takes to plan a Disney trip so you can focus on the really fun and important things, like having a great time with your family and friends and enjoying the magic. You can listen to this podcast, you can meet the entire Ear to There Travel team, or you can request your free, no obligation quote over at eartotheretravel.com. All right, let's get started with this week's Word of the Week. And this week's Walt Disney World Word of the Week is brought to you by the letter H. And of course, it is H for Horizons. I know what you're saying to yourself right now. You're like, Phil, you've been doing these Word of the Week shows for darn near 20 years. How did you never do a Horizons show? Well, I honestly don't know. All right, that's a complete lie. I haven't been doing these for darn near 20 years. I have been doing them for a while, though, and it's pretty surprising that I haven't devoted a full episode to Horizons. So here we go. So Horizons was a dark ride in Epcot Center. Yes, let's make the distinction early. Epcot Center and not just a regular old Epcot. It was designed by Disney, or I should say Walt Disney Imagineering's George McGinnis, and it was themed around the life of the future. It was an Omnimover ride system, so hey Bob, if you're listening, thanks for that one. It was about 14 minutes and 45 seconds long, and it was originally situated between the World of Motion Pavilion and the Universe of Energy Pavilion. It originally opened on October 1st, 1983, so 1 year after the grand opening of Epcot Center. So before we talk about the attraction, let's go back in time a little bit and talk about its history. So when it was originally conceived, it was called, or it was named, Century 3. And this was in order to recognize the third century of American existence between 1976 and 2076. By the way, this is just a weird aside. I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, ones that aren't my own and ones that aren't Disney ones. I try not to listen to Disney podcasts because I don't want to steal any concepts by accident or any ideas. Anyway, I listened to one podcast and the host constantly says the dates like this: 2012, 2007, 2019. You don't need the end. I know you might not know which show I'm talking about. It is a famous and popular one, but every time I hear it, I correct her in my head. I'm such a pain in the butt when it comes to that stuff. Okay. Yes, that was a strange stream of consciousness from me. Back to Horizons, which opened in 1983. So it was called Century 3 in its development stages. Then the name was changed to Future Probe. And the reason this was done was to help international guests who wouldn't really care or appreciate the Century 3 concept. But then Future Probe was scrapped due to the, let's say, medical nature of the word probe. Like I was abducted by aliens and I was future probed. That somehow doesn't sound as good as Horizons. And that name was actually a collaboration between Disney Imagineers and the attraction's original sponsor, GE or General Electric. Now, for extra points, can you tell me what attraction in Magic Kingdom was sponsored by General Electric as well I'll give you a second. You got it? Yes, of course. That would be Walt Disney's Carousel of Progress. As a matter of fact, Horizons was kind of a sequel to the Carousel of Progress. Carousel of Progress, of course, debuted at the 1964-1965 New York World's Fair and was, and in fact still is, all about the progress of the 20th century. And the carousel follows the progress of one family throughout the 20th century, and you follow the same family again through the 21st century in Horizons, or at least you could. And if right now you're thinking, hey Phil, that seems like a stretch, I don't know if I believe that, well listen to this. In the Looking Back at Tomorrow section of the Horizons attraction, there was a TV, and playing on the TV was the song, There's a Great Big Beautiful Tomorrow.
Easy living. It's always been just around the corner.
Pretty cool, right? So Horizons was the only attraction in all of Epcot Center to showcase all of Epcot's future world elements. Those elements were communication, community interaction, energy, transportation, anatomy, and physiology. And the attraction also showcased humans' relationship to the sea, land, air, and space. And that just reminds me of an episode of The Simpsons. I'm sorry for the tangent. It's the episode where Michael Keaton is playing the convict that comes and lives with the Simpsons for a while. At one point, Homer and Marge go to the prison to see Michael Keaton's character's paintings. Apparently, he's a very gifted painter. And the warden in the scene, the prison warden, just doesn't understand why it's a good painting. And he says something like, this painting's ridiculous. Well, actually, he has a really thick Texas accent. So he's like, this painting's ridiculous. A unicorn in space? What's he breathing? And Homer goes, air? And the warden says, there's no air in space. And then Homer replies, there's an air and space museum. Oh my God, that makes me laugh so hard. Anyway, I got to get back to the episode. So Horizons was based on the idea or the phrase that, of course, Walt Disney said, if you can dream it, you can do it. And wait, what? Oh, right. Walt Disney didn't say that. That is one of the urban legends around Walt Disney. That quote is attributed to him everywhere, even in some official Disney company books. And I saw it on a sign during the Walt Disney World Marathon several years ago. Walt Disney never said that quote. That quote came from Disney Imagineer Tom Fitzgerald, who wrote the song for Horizons and wrote that line specifically for this attraction. So no, Walt Disney never said that, believe it or not. So the attraction started with the Looking Back at Tomorrow section that I already mentioned. And there was an audio animatronic version of Jules Verne. And you were looking back in time into his visions or his version of what the future would be. And then your ride vehicle moved past these two giant screens. They were called OmniMax screens. And back then, when this attraction was built in 1983, these were like the top of the line, coolest screens, like most amazing screens ever created. And these screens showed the technology that we currently had in, I guess, in 83 and what these things and what these technologies could do for designing our future. All right, and then came the really, really cool part of the attraction. This is when you would see the living room and the kitchen and the house of the future. You would go through these scenes of the futuristic life in cities, in the desert, underwater or under the ocean, under the sea, I guess, if you will, and in space. So I can't really do it justice, right? I can't explain it with my own words and tell you exactly kind of what you saw, but I'll do my best. You went past like robot butlers and a robot chef and a kind of a hair cutting / barber / shaving machine that was giving this guy a haircut and a shave at the same time. One of the things that always has stuck out to me the most, and I think a lot of Horizons fans over the years, was the future of the agriculture and the big orange fields with that orange smell when you would go by. I wish this podcast had like smell-o-vision or smell audio. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? Where right now, instead of playing a sound clip, you could have that smell of those oranges. That's an invention we need. We need smell-o-vision or smell audio or something. I don't know how it worked, but we need that. Now, one of the coolest parts, and there's more. I mean, there was so much more. Like I said, I'm not going to walk you through. I can't really walk you through scene by scene, but what I'm going to do is play a ride through. So listen to the end of this episode, and I'm going to play the ride through uninterrupted of Horizons so you can close your eyes and virtually take a ride through Horizons one more time. But one of the coolest things about Horizons and what made it so far ahead of its time, right, was it was a choose your own adventure ending. There were 3 different endings you could choose from, and the ending was how you were going to get back to the future port, which is where you left from, where your time travel vehicle left from. Basically, it's the boarding area, but still, it's a really cool idea, and I don't know if it's been done since or done as well since. So you had 3 options. You could go with the space option, which was Bravo Centauri and depicted space colonization. You could go with the desert option, which showed the desert farm of Mesa Verde and showed arid zone agriculture. Or you could get back from the Sea Castle Research Base, which depicted ocean colonization. So, of course, if you were a kid in 83 up until 99, or should I say 1999, when Horizons closed, you had to ride 3 times on your trip because you had to experience all 3 different endings. So GE sponsorship ended in 1993 and they decided not to renew. All the way back in 1993, there were ideas and concepts thrown around at Imagineering that the building will be kept but gutted and turned into a space-themed pavilion. The rumor was that the ride system would be completely changed, and the concept was that a rider would sit in a harness with a joystick riding through space, and they could control the pitch and the yaw of the vehicle with that joystick. Of course, as we know, that did not happen, and on January 9th, 1999, Horizons was closed for good. Eventually, after about a year of sitting vacant, the Horizons building, which was themed like a spaceship, by the way, shaped like a spaceship, which was very, very cool. Unfortunately, the building was demolished, and construction on the new attraction, Mission Space, began in 2000. In the year 2000. I don't know if I can read 2000 without doing that. Anyway, Mission Space eventually opened in 2003, marking the official end to Horizons. Now, there are some leftovers from Horizons around Walt Disney World. When the building for Horizons was demolished, there was a planter outside that had the sign for Horizons in it. Well, guess what? That planter was never moved, never touched really, and it's still there today, of course, instead of the sign that says Horizons being there. Now there's the circular sign that says Mission Space. Speaking of Mission Space, of course, in the queue on the big gravity wheel that you can see in the middle of the gravity wheel is the old logo, of course, for Horizons. If you head over to Disney's Hollywood Studios and go to the Backlot Express counter service restaurant, up in the rafters in the ceiling is one of the molds that was used to create one of the spaceships from the agriculture scene in Horizons. And one of the old tributes that is no longer there at Space Mountain, when you were going up the old moving walkway that no longer is there, of course they replaced that moving walkway with a regular hallway last year, but you used to go by a sign on that moving walkway that said Mesa Verde. What Horizons really was and what it kind of represented was a very optimistic, very hopeful vision of the future. And even though it's gone, it's not impossible, like I said earlier, to go back and close your eyes and ride through that attraction just one more time. So imagine yourself right now. Don't close your eyes if you're in your car. That's a bad idea. But just imagine yourself walking up to that spaceship-shaped, stylized building, walking through the queue, getting to the boarding area, and now you are sitting down on the attraction, and it's time to go.
The doors of your vehicle will close automatically. Please remain seated with your hands and arms inside the vehicle at all times.
Horizons 1 is now departing. Our final destination today, the 21st century.
Hey, that's some destination.
My wife's right. Wait till you see the new towns of tomorrow. Desert farms and floating cities, even colonies in space. But you know, this isn't exactly the first time anyone's tried to make this trip. People have been dreaming about the future for centuries. Well, here's the stuff dreams were made of several hundred years ago. Yeah, it's always fun looking back at tomorrow. Come on, I'll show you what I mean. There's the grand old man himself, Jules Verne. This is the way a moonshot looked to him back in the late 1800s. Old Uncle Jules may not have had all the answers, but he had the right idea.
He was just a little ahead of his time.
You know, people have painted some pretty fantastic views of the future.
And some pretty mixed up ones, too.
Easy living. It's always been just around the corner.
Say, we're just in time for the matinee.
Yeah, looking back at tomorrow through the movies of yesteryear.
Progress can be accurately checked on a synchronized scanning map with no driving responsibility.
Look, the future from the 50s.
A bit far out, don't you think?
I guess so, but we always thought the future would be kind of fun.
I suppose people have always dreamed of the future. We sure do.
The only difference is that today, with what we know and what we're learning to do, we really can bring our dreams to life. It takes a lot of work, but the truth is, if we can dream it, we can do it.
Tomorrow's horizons are here, today.
The world of liquid space, oceans of minerals and food ready to fuel tomorrow's needs. The DNA chain, life's molecular blueprint. Decoding its secrets is leading us to dramatically improved health. The sun, Today, we're learning ways to harness its limitless energy. In space, habitats where people live and work. This is no distant dream. We're at the threshold now. A computerized view of Earth. Landsat photography, providing vital data on agriculture, resources, and ecological concerns. The cityscape. A living tribute to our richest resource, people. Here's a new kind of cityscape, the microprocessor, an entire computer on a tiny silicon chip. What you've just seen are the building blocks for the future up ahead. And while it may look fantastic, remember, it's all possible.
That's right.
And we ought to know. We live there. Come on. Take a look at 21st century living, on land, at sea, and even out in space. But let's start off at our place.
She's talking to our daughter, the desert dweller. That little girl and her husband are farmers. Like music? My wife there has a good ear for music. That's our daughter she's talking to. She's doing wonders out there on one of those desert farms. Wrote this myself. Like it?
How did you and Daddy ever survive us? Oh, that reminds me. We both love the solar berries.
That little girl and her husband are farmers. Like music?
Isn't it something? Send a city kid to college for 7 years, and what happens? She becomes a farmer.
Oh, I think agricultural engineer is a little more like it.
Okay, but me, I'll take the city.
Yes, it's always exciting.
But hey, with today's transportation, we're just minutes away from our kids. Look at that, will you? A few years ago, this was all barren desert. No crops, no irrigation. Quite a transformation.
Well, I'm not surprised. I can see the storm from here. Even the robots see it. Stand by, harvesters.
I mean real showers.
I believe it. Thanks for the warning.
You know, this really makes me proud.
And you wanted her to go to law school.
But do you suppose they ever miss the fun of the city?
Oh, I think they get their share right here.
Very funny. I know it's a party.
Shouldn't your granddaughter be studying instead of flirting with that beach boy?
He is not a beach boy. He's studying marine biology there on the floating city.
Seriously, I know those too. Okay, I'll be expecting you. Good enough. But that Sunset Express headed for the desert. Got it.
Every 10 minutes. More. That's right. Now, you're all good swimmers. I'm not worried about your swimming at all. And I know this isn't your first dive, but tell me, what's your most important tool underwater? Wrong over. It's judgment. You must use good judgment. And what else must you do, Scott? Swim safely. Follow your diving rules.
Floating cities. They're amazing. I mean, whole new industries have developed in them. And under them, mariculture, all sorts of marine mining, fuels, energy.
And fun. Remember fun?
I'm serious.
Well, so am I. floating cities have opened up whole new ways for people to enjoy their lives, as well as their work.
There's always been something sort of mysterious about our oceans. We knew they were filled with valuable gifts for us.
Yeah, water and seaweed.
Very funny. But seawater has become an excellent source of energy, as well as being valuable for desert irrigation. And kelp.
Seaweed.
Kelp is a tremendous source of low-cost fuel. Oh, we found lots of good things under our oceans.
And don't forget space. We found lots of good things out there, too.
Space colonies are out of this world. Let's take a quick look around.
Now there's the new frontier.
Our son and his family wouldn't live anywhere else. Hey, maybe you and I ought to move up here.
Oh, what a wonderful idea.
Now there's my speed. Sports and exercise in zero gravity.
It looks like fun.
It is once you get the hang of it.
Only inside. Hey, Mom! What is it, Tommy? Look, Mom, they're flying. Why don't you try? I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Don't let go of the motor. You don't want to lose it.
Oh, now that's really lovely.
Practical, too. Just think, materials from space for all kinds of industries back on Earth. And that's...
Uh-oh. We gotta run.
Time for our grandson's party?
Uh-huh.
We'll catch up to you later.
Oh, he's a doll. Thank you.
I think he looks a little like me. He does not. He's beautiful. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear.
Attention please. Horizons 1 Earth Shuttle now available for boarding at gate 22. Final boarding call for Horizons 1.
Attention Horizons passengers. You are invited to choose your own flight path back to the future port. Please look down at the lighted panels in front of you. Press one of the 3 ride choices: space, desert, or undersea. Everyone can choose. Majority rules. All passengers, make your selections now.
Horizon Center. You are clear for departure.
Well, we're almost back from the future.
Oh, it went by so quickly.
Yes, but one of the nice things about traveling into the future is that the journey's just beginning.
That's right.
And I'll tell you something. If we can dream it, we really can do it. And that's the most exciting part.
From all of us, thanks for exploring horizons. Now, please take small children by the hand and watch your step onto the moving belt. The belt and your vehicle are traveling at equal speed.
And that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ear to There Disney podcast, Walt Disney World Word of the Week. Listen, this was a long one, mostly because of the ride through at the end. By the way, you chose Space. That's the one, and that's the ending that you just listened to. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode, this little, wow, I didn't think about it till now, this trip back into the future, I guess you would say, back in time to the future. My head's going to explode. It's spinning. But I hope you enjoyed this episode. This was a really fun one to do. And listen, do me a favor. If you enjoyed it, if you have someone that you think would enjoy it, just tell them about it. Share this podcast on social media. Let somebody know that it exists. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you in advance for doing that. All right. Just remember, there will be a new episode of the Ear to There podcast next week. It's been summer. It's been hard to keep up with it with the vacations and the kids and work. But I promise these episodes are going to come much more regularly now that the summer is winding down. So there will be a new numbered episode next week. There will be a new Word of the Week next week, even though I will be in Disneyland for the D23 Expo. That actually makes it way easier to make episodes because of all the cool, crazy stuff that will be going on. So follow me next week. Thank you again so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Have a phenomenal week. Bye-bye.
Ear to there, ear to there.